Welcome back, everyone, to the Cigar Smoke Filled Back Room. I am Doug with Tusk Consulting. TuskConsulting@gmail.com. TuskConsulting@gmail.com. If you are a pro-gun Republican and you would like some political consulting help, drop me a line at that email and we'll get back to you. If you are not a pro-gun Republican, go hang out with the ABC News crew, because you aren't my people. All right. This video is going to be very, very different from our normal video series. Again, this is about debate analysis. This is about the September 10th, 2024 debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Before we get too far into the video, our cigar of the day is a Five Vegas Nicaragua. And our bottle of the day is a Booker's. It's a quite amazing bourbon. If you don't know bourbon, ask people who know bourbon about Booker's, and they'll tell you it's the best. It's great. It's huge. Very, very bold flavors. Very bold. Anyhow. All right, the September 10th, 2024 debate. So, what we have said multiple times, debates are theater, not substance. So, did I take a whole bunch of notes? Sure I did. And can I go through line by line the whole thing, give you, issue by issue breakdown every question? Yeah, I can absolutely do that. I got my notes right here. It doesn't matter. This is not an academic debate. This is not a high school debate where you get scored, right? This is a political debate. It's on television. It is theater. Now, the expectation game's real. The last debate that Donald Trump was part of was back at the end of June, where he literally knocked out Joe Biden. Literally, just absolutely over. That set a very high level of expectation for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris's last presidential debate for the general election was never. This is actually Donald Trump's 7th debate tonight for a general presidential election. It was Kamala Harris's first. And to a degree it showed. But in case you were starting to think that every debate ended in some huge move one way or the other, like most debates, this one was not a grand slam either direction. It was meh. Oh, there were some entertaining parts. Oh, sure there was. Oh, yeah. There were some good zingers, some nice lines that were included, so forth and so on. But at the end of the day, do those really make for a shift in the polls, a change in the direction of the campaigns? No, not really. Clearly, both candidates were well prepared. At the last debate in June, Joe Biden wasn't prepared, wasn't caffeinated, I guess, wasn't with it, okay? And Trump was pretty disciplined. At this debate, both candidates had obviously prepared. They knew what they were going to say, when they were going to say it, and they were reasonably disciplined. There was some responding that was outside of the normal context. Probably both sides' camps told them they shouldn't have responded as much as they did. But having said that, most of this debate was two people giving parallel speeches of their usual talking points. It wasn't anything new. It wasn't bold new strategies or things we hadn't heard before. It was what Donald Trump says when he goes to a campaign stop. It was what Kamala Harris says when she has a scripted bust-in crowd. Anyway, you get the point. It was their normal stuff. Now, as you can probably tell from the shirt, I'm kind of a Trump guy. Pro-Trump Republican, pro-gun Republican. There were lots of parts of this where he could have called her names and he didn't. And that is definitely a mark in his favor. He did hit her on issues because he wanted to do something very, very important. Compare the records. We have somebody who's been president and we have somebody who's vice president right now. And comparing those records is very, very important. And a lot of that was done. And depending on how you want to focus on which question, maybe better one way, maybe better the other way, whatever. But the point is, you could compare apples and apples here. That's really nice. It's very handy. It's very informative. But again, he didn't call her, Commie Kamala or Cackling Kamala, etc. He was fairly restrained in that regard. Let's talk about who was not restrained, okay? Moderators sucked. They just sucked. There's nothing for it. I mean, last debate, the CNN moderators actually did a pretty good job. These moderators were awful. I don't know what I expected from ABC. Whatever it was, what was it? They didn't meet it. The moderators were bad. The moderators were obviously on Harris's side, fact-checking him, but not her. So, hey, ABC News dipstick, whose name I've already forgotten because you really don't even matter. Fact-check this cigar. You dork. It was just absurd. Just absurd. Obviously in the Harris camp. Obviously, that dude whose name, again, eludes me because it doesn't matter. They're terrible. Just absolutely terrible. But, again, going through these questions, one by one, line by line, does it make any difference? Honestly, it doesn't. It's a lot of over-analysis. Really, really not a big deal. Probably, though, if you want to highlight one point, when they were talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal, the best zinger of the night was when, Trump pointed out that she was there 3 days before, and then she leaves. She was supposed to be there to, to make sure that peace happens, and poof, 3 days later, a war breaks out. She was talking about her being there like it was a positive thing. And he points out that if you're there to make sure that peace happens, and ain't no peace, seems like you failed, didn't you? I think if you had to choose one issue point to highlight, I think it was that. I think that was a pretty darn solid line. And of course, in the closing statements, Kamala Harris went for her vague, vibe-style campaign, talking about the future. Oh, there's this whole, we're not going back, we're going to turn the page. How do you turn the page on yourself? But this is almost like a Choose Your Own Adventure book. Remember those? I loved Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid. If you chose wrong, you would, you flip back a few pages and then choose a different way. The real world don't work like that, hon. The real world, when you mess up, you don't get to flip back a few pages in your Choose Your Own Adventure. You suffer the consequences. And right now the world is suffering the consequences of a disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, which signaled to every tin pot dictator that it was open season. And now we have descended into the chaotic international landscape that we have. Donald Trump pointed out very, very well with that point that, she went there 3 days before the invasion and then there's war. So clearly, foreign policy obviously isn't her skill set. But back to her closing statement, she was talking about all this stuff about not going back and turning the page in the future, her vibe stuff. And she was the one to make the point she wants to be president for all Americans, which is admittedly a good line that I would like Donald Trump to use. And he has used in the past. In Trump's closing statement, which was a touch combative, that's all right, he said, hey, why hasn't she done all this stuff already? She's talking about all this stuff she wants to do. We got a train going by because there's still a little bit of industry around. Why haven't she, why this tax plan, the border stuff, why aren't you doing it right now? You're in the administration right now. And I think that's really important because he needed to tie her to Biden, and he did do that pretty well. He really, really hit her hard on the fracking stuff and the international landscape, the uncertainty in the world, etc. Of course, a lot of talk about immigration and this crime associated with that. A lot of good laughs about the whole problem with Springfield and pets and ducks being eaten. There's an awful lot of memes running around about that. Of course, the moderators said that, there's no credible report, which is code for we, the media, have not decided it's real yet, so it's fake. Okay? That when they say there's no credible, that means we have not yet blessed it with our seal of approval. So you don't get to use it as a talking point, which is, of course, garbage, and siding with the Democrats. That's what they're doing, right? But look, when you're social media is not kind to Republicans in general, but when you're winning the meme war, okay, you're doing real, real well. And the simple fact of the matter is that this completely uncontrolled immigration problem that exists right now, and she's the border czar. It has got to the point where if it weren't so tragic, it'd be funny. Anyhow, one last point I want to make about this lovely debate that we had tonight. That was, again, not a home run for either side, but really didn't need to be, especially for Donald Trump. Things are going Donald Trump's way. At least that's what the recent polling says, if you like the polls. But remember, debates are theater, not substance. And that theater is pretty important. And let's talk about the first ever televised debate. First ever televised debate was between Nixon and Kennedy in '60. And it was broadcast on radio and on television. And people that heard the debate on radio thought that it was either a tie or that Nixon was doing very, very well. People that watched it on TV said that Kennedy won the debate. Why the difference? Well, again, it's theater, okay? And the visual is a huge part of how we get information. In that debate, Kennedy looked at the camera and he spoke to the American people. There's also some makeup issues, some shirt color issues that, of course, the political consultants love to drone on and on about. But the body language aspect was also important. Kennedy looked at the camera and spoke to the people. Nixon did this, blah, 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 yelling at his opponent. Now that might score points in an academic style debate. And on the radio, again, without the visual aspect, people thought he was doing pretty darn well, at least above average. But the fact is, in a televised debate, people want to be the candidate looking at them. In this debate, one candidate did and one candidate didn't. Donald Trump looked at the camera. He always knew where the camera was. That's what being in your seventh debate will tell you. You know where the camera is, if you're smart. Okay? Kamala Harris? Constantly looking over at Trump, constantly pointing the finger. She had a lot worse control over her facial reactions as she reacted to things that he said. It definitely was much worse in that regard. So if you want to compare this to the '60 Nixon-Kennedy debate, I'm here to tell you that in the visual aspect, she was Nixon and he was Kennedy. That matters. Because this debate, and all debates, are theater, not substance. Again, I am Doug with Tusk Consulting, tuskconsulting@gmail.com, tuskconsulting@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody. Catch you in the next one.